It's all over, Dave. Another first round exit from the playoffs, a game seven disappointment. Does it feel any better? Does it feel any different? Let's get into it on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Leafs podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother on TSN's Overdrive and TSN 1050's Leafs Lunch. Joining me is my co-host, Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet, also a writer for the NHLPA. Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure, if you haven't already, subscribe for free content every day, each and every day, Monday through Friday, even through the rest of the Stanley Cup playoffs, despite the Maple Leafs getting eliminated. You can also check us out on YouTube and subscribe there as well. It's over, Dave. You know, it's over. Another round one exit for the Maple Leafs. They've now broken records. They're making history here. They're the first team in like modern day winner take all scenarios to lose 5 years in a row. The first team in the MLB, NBA, and NHL combined to lose a winner take all game in the opening round of the playoffs 5 years in a row. There's been some jokers that are like, oh, technically Columbus was not a playoffs, but humor me. It counts.
Well, here's the thing. They say a winner take all. Technically, I'm going to pull up that tweet because got to show the good folks here on YouTube the tweet that went out. I think people are mistaken what that tweet meant because everyone's like, oh, but they didn't make the playoffs in 2020. But that's not what the tweet was saying. Winner take all. It could be a wild card technically. And
that's right. It says opening round of the playoffs. So whether or not you want to call the wild card an opening round, it's I guess it's a slightly open to interpretation. But regardless, they lose. It's over. The season's done, Dave. I have feeling. Let's go through the range of emotion, I guess. Like, you know, I felt good going into it. I'll be honest with you. I actually deep down felt like this year was different. This was going to be the team to break the mold and break through. And ultimately, we're sitting here doing the same show that I did a year ago. It's slightly different. Like, to me, Toronto at least showed up in this game and they played their asses off and gave them a chance. I mean, if you look at the numbers, they probably should have won this game. But ultimately, they're hitting the links today, and Tampa's going on to round two. How's that make you feel?
So here's the thing. I've been known to be an emotional person throughout my life. Okay, I'm Italian. Emotions are second language. Third language is our hands. But when it comes to the Leafs, I've
God.
I've stopped letting here's the thing. I've perspective on my life has changed where I can't let myself get bothered by these things to the point where I'm gonna go into this massive depression. Am I up? Am I not? I'm not. I was not happy at the end of the game. I'm not gonna be like saying like, oh, I felt nothing. No. I was not happy that they lost Game 7. No one in the right mind should be.
No, I sat in silence for at least 25 minutes. At least.
It was just I didn't really have much to say. Like, what can be said? They put forth a pretty decent effort. They didn't I'm just like I was pissed when they lost to Montreal. I was pissed because they just flat out did not show up. They were not in the game at all. Columbus, same thing too. Like, really, like this is how you're gonna play.
Yeah.
It's like those ones I was really upset. And I'm just like this time around, I'm like, I'm not gonna get upset about this because this was a hard game. This was they put forth a decent effort. Does it suck that they lost in the first round again? Yes. Does it suck that they are not? I'm gonna have to hear the same sorry ass jokes for the next God knows how long. It is gonna suck, but guess what? If it hasn't I'm not gonna let this stuff keep bothering me because what's the point? Right? It's a reoccurring thing. It's Groundhog Day all over again. You just gotta live with it.
It is, but that's what makes it so upsetting. Today's episode, by the way, is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, it's where the game starts. Had to get that in there, good pal. I forgot at the top of the show.
No problem.
But like you're a little more optimistic, I guess, than I am, or you're a little more level-headed than I am at this point. It's like, yeah, they played well, and maybe they should have won that game. They're going up against a top quality opponent. I get it. We always knew this was going to be a dogfight, almost a coin flip type series, and figured it was going to go 6, 7 games, and it could come down to one goal at the end of the day, and that's what it did. But ultimately, like I expected a little bit more. I felt like I did. And it's also equally upsetting. Just it seemed like they should have won that. I think if moneypuck.com gave them a 70% chance in the like shoulda won meter or whatever it is, the whatever meter that they have for like based on how they should have won that game. I think they had like a 70% chance of winning that game. So in 100 simulations, Toronto would have won 70 out of the 100 times. This happened to be one of the 30 times, unfortunately, in this game. One of the big turning points, though, in this one, which is where like it kind of goes to just slight anger for me, is probably when like the Tavares goal got waved off. And due to Hall's interference, was that interference? Yeah, probably was. I'm not going to come out here and say that was a bogus call. It probably was, but if you're going to put the whistles away in a game like that, where you did for a majority of that game, you also need to put the whistle away for that play. You know what I mean? Like you're either going to call the rule book by the standard that you set, or you're going to sit there and you're going to just keep your whistles in your pocket, not just bring it out once randomly when you want to, make this call. Because there was plenty of trips and holds and grabs throughout the entire game that you could have called that just didn't go. But this one, you were going to, make sure that you negated the goal and Hall went and sat for 2 minutes. That to me felt like a turning point. And it's more of an overlying kind of theme that builds up over the last 5, 6 years. You can go date all the way back to 2013, and even I guess the whole 18 years is this team never seems to. And the question is this team cursed, right? Are they cursed? And this is where I almost start to believe it, because if you look back at all of these game 7 losses, all these eliminations and these debacles and just collapses, no bounce ever seems to go Toronto's way. No call ever seems to go Toronto's way, over the course of an elimination game. Like, is it just me, or does it seem like it always comes to bite Toronto in the ass, and they're the ones who end up getting screwed over by, whether if it's a bad bounce, which it happens, like it's a game played on ice with a rubber puck. I understand this stuff happens, but they're a bad bounce or a phantom high sticking call, you're calling a soft pick, or you're not calling hooks, or you're not calling trips or interference calls. Like it just seems to really always go against Toronto. And I hate to be the Toronto versus everybody mentality, but it just seems to always be the case. Whether that's happening on purpose, I don't think it is. That's just the curse. Like it's just what it is. They never get a bounce going their way in a do or die situation.
I was having the same exact conversation when I was watching the games with some friends, like on a video call, and Buddy's just like, they can't get a bounce. Like,
No.
you think about it, they had 2 shots go off the post.
Yeah.
The Mikheyev one and the Marner one.
Yeah.
Oh.
Matthews had a puck go off the like shaft or knob of Vasilevsky's stick. Like,
There was a Spezza goal that just like literally was an inch wide. Like,
yeah.
it's one of those things where you need a bit of luck at times. You also got to make a bit of your luck too, right? And I think there's some one thing that I noticed was desperation, right? When's the desperation come in? When you finally just say, we're gonna put it all out there. We have nothing left to lose, right? I maybe we'll wait this for the second segment, because I wanted to discuss your tweet.
Well,
uh,
okay, so
fixing
you wanna
that.
get there? Why don't we take a quick break, for a second, and then we could get back into the game, and because I do wanna discuss the tweet because I still stand by it. I
Mhm.
really do. I still stand by it. You can challenge me on it if you want, but I stand by it. But, before we get there, before we get to the tweet, let me tell you about one of today's show sponsors, and that's BetOnline. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sport developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, the hockey playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano. Got Dave Morassutti with me. We're your hosts here at Locked On Leafs. The season is over. Toronto losing 2-1 to the Tampa Bay Lightning in Game 7 in Round 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. But we're not finished up with the podcast. It's a year-round podcast, 365. We'll be going straight 5 shows all the way through until the end of the playoffs, and then we'll kind of scale it back through the summer. Still get you 3 shows a week, but we're still here, so make sure that you're continued to be subscribed. Today's show, we're kind of reflecting on this series in particular. Over the course of the week, we'll go through what we believe will happen to this team in the future. So make sure you're subscribed so you can get that content, whether it's via podcast form or on YouTube, where we're trying to build and grow a community there. Also, Dave, why don't you tell the good folks about the community that we've been growing on, what's the website that we're using? I don't know why
Discord.
I'm Discord. Thank you.
You know what?
Blanking.
If there was somebody that I felt like the pain and like the pain of Leafs Nation, that our Discord channel was. You know what? I will
Broken.
say this: as heartbroken as they were, this is why I love our Discord channel. Everybody was uplifting. There
Yes,
wasn't there wasn't any toxic talk about what comes next. It was like this is what I wish I had. I'm like, why did it take so long for us to get this Discord? I needed this.
I know.
You know what? Yeah, it was tough, but
It'll be in the show notes. It'll be in the show notes down below if you want to join the Discord and
that Discord
join
is
the
going to be
community.
going. Well, I mean, it's going to become very active over the next week.
Yeah,
I
I
would
would
say.
imagine so. I would imagine so. All right. So yeah, 2-1 loss, and you were just getting to the point where you wanted to see kind of that burst from the stars show up. Did you feel you got that, Dave? Because I didn't. I didn't feel like we really got that urgency where it seemed like, oh, this team's about to tie it up. It really didn't seem like, not to say that they didn't want it, but they just never took over in a way where you're like, this is happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the guy in particular, I know you're going to bring up the tweet, but guy in particular who maybe it's just on me for having sky high expectations on somebody who I feel is the league's MVP and one of the best players in the world, but I didn't feel like Auston Matthews put the team on his back and took that team to the second round. And I just wanted to see that. And you're seeing the tweet here. If you're here with us on YouTube, if you're listening through the audio form, I'll read it out to you. I tweeted this out about an hour or so after the game, maybe an hour and a half after. Actually, it was right after Connor McDavid scored to make it 2-0 for the Oilers, and it was kind of curtains. You knew that they were going on. And I said, what we're seeing from 97, what we're seeing 97 do right now is kind of what I wanted to see out of 34 tonight. The guy who elevated is moving on, and the guy who didn't, well, isn't. Now I got a lot of flack for that, Dave. And yes, I'm well aware that the quality of competition was not the same. So I had to also kind of put a response and make a thread out of it and say, obviously, the quality of competition wasn't the same, but the best players in the world should be able to shine no matter who they play. That's how you get your name in that conversation. Matthews wasn't the problem by any means, but he didn't put the team on his back either. That is what I meant by that comment. And you can tell me differently, but at no point did I sit there and say Matthews is ready. Matthews is winning this game. Like, I didn't think that Auston Matthews had the best game of the series in Game 7, where Connor McDavid, he took his game to another level that night and willed his team to victory. I get it. Two different opponents. But at the end of the day, it's one game, and you got to be the best player on the ice Connor was. Auston wasn't. He wasn't the best player on the ice that night. Maybe even been Nick Paul, for Pete's sake. But Andre Vasilevsky was also up there. Victor Hedman you could put up there, who had a better game than Auston Matthews. Like, that is what I mean by that tweet. And I understand the quality of competition is different, but when you are the best player in the world, or you are in that conversation, you need to be the best player on the ice. And I just felt that Auston, though he had a good game, he played well, but he didn't exceed expectations and do what's necessary to bring this team to the second round. And I just wanted a little bit more out of him.
Yeah. So look, I thought your tweet was fair. First and foremost, you know what? Like, at the end of the day, who are you going to criticize when a team goes through a performance like this? It has to be the guys that you're putting in the position to lead the team, right? You know, Auston Matthews is a great player, but it was like he had a lot of chances. They had a lot of shots when he was on the ice.
He played well. He played well too.
Yeah.
This isn't me saying that he was the
He
reason why
wasn't
they lost
dominant enough.
or that he played bad, but he didn't take over that game.
Yeah.
And that's what the great players, that's what the best players in the world need to do at that point. And I felt in the third period, I was waiting for that to happen, and it just never came.
Yeah, the third period was a disappointing part for me because look, as many fans, and we brought up the officials, you know, in the previous segment, the Leafs can get all the power plays they want, but when you can't actually score on the power play, what's the point? That's the other thing, guys. They can get all the power plays they want, and somebody even brought this up, and I thought they weren't wrong. You actually have to score on those power play chances too,
True.
and they didn't. So, like that's the thing there. Like you know, you can't rely on the power play either. Some
They
guys
were
do. We understand that. But what it comes down to is if you're watching the Rangers Penguins game, you're watching two teams just it's a dogfight. They're going for the hard places on the ice. I felt at times the Leaf Stars were too content on staying to the on the outside. This has always been my criticism of them. And Tampa's just like, all right, we're just gonna stick here in the middle in the slot. No one's gonna come here. This is the no skate zone. And I didn't see anyone on the Leafs say, no, we're gonna bully you into this area. I didn't see that. There was no pushback on the Lightning defense. Like at one point late in the game, Auston Matthews has it on his stick. I think it was just around the like a minute left in the game, maybe even less than a minute left.
passed it off to Marner.
No, there was that one. Auston Matthews should never be passing it off, by the way. That's not what a star player is supposed to do. It was, I think it was like 40 seconds left or something like that. Someone will correct me in the comments, but no, he has no support and he dumps the puck into the zone only for there to be no blue jerseys in the zone, and it's an easy out for the Lightning. Like a play like that, first off, Auston Matthews dumping and chasing, come on. That is not like there's got to be some, you know, conviction with every play that you make in those moments. I didn't see that from him. And yeah, passing it off on a chance to shoot, not really what we expect from Auston Matthews either.
No, and again, like he's not the reason why this team lost. Absolutely not. Like Tampa, give credit where credit is due. Like they're a good team. Andre Vasilevsky had the game that we kind of all were worried about. Like he was going to be the boogeyman, and he was going to win that game. That's just what he does,
Yeah.
and he kind of did. And right, so I'm not sitting here saying Toronto played bad, or I'm not saying they got outplayed, and I'm disappointed in their efforts. I'm not. I thought they played well, and they probably should have won that game if it was all in a simulation. Obviously, a couple of bad breaks, and next thing you know, they're out. They lose 2-1. But to your power play point, yeah, like the Maple Leafs, you look at their entire series, 14% on the power play. 14%. The amount of power plays that both these teams were given, and Toronto only operated at 14%. Meanwhile, Tampa operating at 22%. I mean, like that's kind of the difference right there. Is the fact that Tampa, when they got the power play, they were able to kind of convert a couple of times. The 5-on-3 on the high stick, that's really how they tied the game in game 6 to even bring it to overtime, was converting on the power play. Meanwhile, the Maple Leafs get one, and they're just unable to do anything with it. Unable to do anything with it in the last, handful of games. And it just went completely cold. Something that was number one in the league through the entire year. And you talk about the break-in for the power play, it's very similar where it's just, they do the little drop pass. Someone comes in, whether it's Matthews or Marner into the neutral zone, and then they try and chip it to the left to whether it's Willie or Tavares, and then they try and do that break in that way. And it got stagnated so many times. Like I knew it was coming, which meant Victor Hedman knew this thing was freaking coming, or Ryan McDonough knew it was coming, or whoever was there, and they were there to kind of stop it every single time. Right? Like it
Yeah.
got really, really stale. And there wasn't many adjustments made. But at the end of the day, I don't think I don't think special teams didn't lose them.
No, I
Special
don't think so.
teams, the series to me. I just think at the end of the day, we needed the superstars to perform to the ability that they did at other points of the season, and they didn't. Like that had to be Auston Matthews' best game of the year. Like that's what I was expecting. Honestly, that's what I was expecting for me to come out and be like the way that I felt about him after that game in Minnesota, and we always pinpoint that one game, right? That's how I wanted to feel about him at the end of the game. Like that dude dominated and took over on both ends of the ice, and he said, "I'm not losing this one." He never really did that. Mitch Marner didn't register a single shot on goal actually in this game. Um, I thought Willie played pretty good. Tavares, he played well as himself, but at the end of the day, they just weren't able to get it done. It's little upsetting that we're having this conversation here once again
The
for a
the upsetting part
in a
is
row.
that Game 6 was their chance. Really, if you think about it, when you're up 3-2 with a chance to end the game, to end the series, that was their chance. When they didn't win that game, I'm just like, this is not good. And even a friend of mine said, I don't like their chances anymore because they gave Tampa that belief. They gave them that
Yeah.
belief, right?
Well, even Game 7, I mean, Braden Point goes down early. You got to take advantage. Like that's one of their best players, one of the guys who shut you down along with Sorelli. And then they got to go and they got to change up their lineups a little bit, and you can't take advantage of that, right? Like that was a matchup that had given them fits. Sorelli and Point on Marner and Matthews, and Point goes down, and all of a sudden I thought, okay, that's a break. Can they capitalize? Can they take advantage? They didn't. Like they flat out didn't. Kudos to Nick Paul who stepped up in a big way, obviously in the absence of Braden Point. But if Nick Paul it can get the better of you, that's not saying like that's not a positive thing there,
Oh,
Dave.
I'll give you this. Locked on Senators podcast was really
Oh yeah, they were.
meh.
They were. They definitely were. Jack Campbell was great though to kind of pull out a positive. Like I thought that guy was dynamite, and I know we're gonna get into what's next. I guess in the next few podcasts throughout the week and in the next week. But Jack Campbell proved to me in this 7-game series like they can win with this guy if they play up to their abilities. And he last night phenomenal, phenomenal. I mean, the first goal, I mean, that takes a weird bounce off of Morgan Riley, kind of gets him out of position a little bit as he had to adjust
Yeah.
to the bounce, and then he just wasn't able to regain his balance to put the rebound in a better place. And Nick Paul, that guy, just pokes it in. And then the second goal, kind of Nick Paul just makes a quick shot from in the inner slot, and that one goes in too. So they're both pretty goals that you're
Mhm.
not upset about, unlike last year where he was very upset about the goal that he allowed in the third period there against Montreal Canadiens. But ultimately, I thought Jack Campbell was probably the best Maple Leaf on the night.
Yeah, I was even going to give Morgan Riley some love on that in that game.
Yeah,
He scored the goal to give them life. I thought
yeah.
he was really pushing it. He was trying. I don't fault like I thought
Brody had a solid game
yeah, like he had like Riley
as
had
always.
he had 5 shots in that game.
Yeah,
Um he was really the Leafs' only offensive threat from the blue line too, which we'll get into kind of something I want to talk about in the future here. But like
yeah,
that like I mean, he scored 2, like, in this series. He scored 3 goals in this series. For, like, considering how poor the Leafs defense was at creating offense, it's not bad for Morgan Rielly. I thought any issues you have with his contract going forward, I think he kind of earned some brownie points, in my opinion.
I don't think anyone should have issues with that contract. I have a lot
You
of
trust me,
different here.
there's people who do.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're paying a guy who can play defense. Yeah. There are those people. You're right. You know what? Before we move on, I got a couple of questions on the other side that I want to ask you. We'll kind of tease them. I want to know if this loss felt any different to you. Is there blame to put here? And most importantly, Dave, do you let this team maybe run it back? We'll answer those questions after a word from our show sponsors from Built Bar.
All right, folks, just close your eyes for a second. Imagine dipping your finger into that plastic tub of birthday cake frosting, and then open your eyes and realizing that was only 150 calories and 16 grams of protein. That is what it's like to eat a birthday cake puff from Built Bar. I just received my birthday cake puffs. I never had anything like this before. They're available right now. We can't promise they'll be there tomorrow, so get them today at built.com. If you haven't tried the puffs, we'll let you in on a little secret here because that's what friends do. A chocolate covered marshmallow protein bar. Yeah, you heard me. Delicious flavored marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. With 150 calories, 16 grams of protein, only 9 grams of sugar, this limited time flavor is an amazing option if you're looking for a healthy way to get flavor and variety in your day. Now, I also will mention that they are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of healthy benefits. So go to built.com to get birthday cake puffs now. And if you want to save a little money while you do it, make sure when you go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. So that is promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off at built.com.
Welcome back to the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti with you. We're hosts here at Locked On Leafs. Toronto, another first round exit after they fall in Game 7, 2-1 to the defending Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning. It's funny, Dave. I'm still it's been over 24 hours, and I am still getting tweets and responses to my tweet from earlier. People like sending me, the scoreboard, and everyone's like, "Oh, it took them 7 games to get past the Kings," and it's like, guys, I'm talking about Game 7 specifically, and one guy elevated his game in Game 7, and one didn't. At the end of the day, that's what happened. Did he play poorly? No, Auston Matthews did not play poorly. But was he the best player on the ice in that game? Did he take over? Did he dominate, put the team on his back? No. But guess who did? Connor McDavid. And I understand he had a better, quality competition, but guess what? It doesn't matter. You still need to get the job done. You can't use it as an excuse for who you're playing, guy. Can't use for excuse for who you are playing. And that leads to the next question that I have for you, Dave. Did this loss feel any different this year than it did in years past? I know you mentioned, it did feel a little bit different from last year. You were more angry. But like when you break it down, the fact that this team is out again in the first round of the playoffs, how did it make you feel? Like, does it feel any different?
You really start to I know a lot of there's been a lot of talk about, was this year different? Yeah, the opponent was different. The circumstances were different because you actually had fans this time and things like that. But the Game 7 felt the same. Like the result in Game 7 was similar. So like I don't know. Like there seems to be a common theme here. I haven't been able to really put my finger on it, but yeah, I still think that this team was good enough to win. Like this team was like each year you kind of think that, but I really thought this year they had all the right pieces. It's just one team was better, had a better game plan, executed their game plan better, and that's really how it went.
Yeah, I was watching this Pittsburgh game tonight, and I'm watching guys like first of all, Sidney Crosby go out, big time block. And right after that, Brock McGinn putting his body on the line, stacking the pads as if he's a goaltender to block a shot. And I'm watching and I'm like, I didn't really see much of that last night. Like there was a couple of guys, no doubt, who made some big blocks, but a guy of the caliber of like Sidney Crosby, not really. You know what I mean? Like we see some guys just kind of like they go out there and almost flamingo in a way, but we didn't quite see, Auston Matthews go down to his belly to make some blocks. So that is when you look at how game 7 needs to be treated differently. I think there's still those types of lessons that they need to unlock, I guess. Where guys like Crosby and the guys on Pittsburgh, the guys on Tampa, you saw Stamkos going down blocking shots. Like they just know, right? They've been there, done that. They know that you need to do just something different. And I just still feel like Toronto has just a little bit more that they had to do, that they needed to do throughout the series, not just in game 7, but like throughout the series to kind of they could have won it. Is that's the problem. Like this series was completely winnable with just a couple of bounces that went their way and maybe just like slightly more effort in a couple of more games. I mean, game 4, the effort that they put out there was just piss poor, absolutely piss poor. Game 2 was not very good for them. I believe the Pittsburgh Penguins are going on to round 2 as it looks like somebody just scored. I think it was Brian Rust. It appears. Anyway, we can talk about that afterward. Do I feel different ultimately? No, I don't. I still am disappointed that the team didn't get it done because much like other years, they were the better team. They played better. They should have won, but a couple of bad bounces, a couple of bad turnovers, a couple of bad mistakes, and that's all she wrote. And it's kind of very similar to what we saw last year, the year before, and the year before that. So, although the team is better and they played better, it's still when I look at the narrative in like what has hurt this team, it's still those the inconsistencies. It's still the like I said, the turnovers, and that's just what to me needs to stop. That's what not what Tampa does, right? Like how many turnovers did Tampa Bay have? Not too many. I don't know, man. I it wasn't that different. I'm still very I'm real in here. It's starting to come back now. Jeez, Dave. Like for a second there, I was like, okay, I feel good, but now it's all starting to come back. Oh boy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to feel good, right? Because you lament on the opportunities, right? Yeah, game 4. Oh, I was disgusted at that. I said this is terrible, and then they go out and they win and then they win game 5, and I'm like, okay, do it in game 6. Prove like change the narrative that you're
Yeah.
gonna get the job done. It
Did
did.
they change the narrative? That was the question that I was trying to get that I meant to get to after this one. Did they change the narrative? The killer instincts, they did not change that narrative for me. That's why it's not different. They still had an opportunity in 2 games to go out there, get it done, knock off Tampa Bay, and move on to the second round, and they couldn't find a way to do it.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, look, the teams that know when they have the other team on the ropes know how to get the job done, right? They know how to finish it off. Tampa knew they had the Leafs on the ropes when they were up 2-1. They knew it, and they knew what they need to do to keep the Leafs from tying that game. Did they get some luck? Sure did. That's what teams need. You need some luck sometimes. But I also just think that did the Leafs do enough? I'm having a hard time really putting my finger on that because I also want to hear what Kyle Dubas has to say about it. I want to hear what's
Yeah.
his like. That's gonna be the crucial thing. When I listen, like when Sheldon Keefe said, "We earned the respect in the handshake line," I'm just
The hell does that do for me?
like what is like that doesn't help the Leafs fans who are now getting the same old jokes and memes that they have to see from their friends from other teams and that
Right.
like that doesn't help that. So for me, it's just like for a lot of Leafs fans, it's easy to just say they just blew it. They didn't get the job done. And that's simply like there's no way to you can't really sugarcoat something that's sour. Like how much
Yeah.
there's no amount of sugar that's going to take the sour taste out of other people's mouths, and I totally get that.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Do you place blame anywhere?
Like you can't like I'm like where really can you put the blame, right? Like it's not one thing that costs them.
Mhm.
It's not like one play cost them the series. It's not like really the blame
I did get
is
a lot of so I posted like
oh,
another thing on Twitter just asking how people felt. There was a lot of blame that was going towards the officials and saying how, it was stolen by the officiating in game 6 and game 7. I'm not for it. I'm not there to make that excuse. But that is one thing that a lot of people are trying to put blame on. Like if this was officiated down the middle and what was called on Toronto was also called on Tampa or vice versa, what Tampa got away with and what Toronto could have gotten away with, Toronto should have won that game. Uh, Yes, but also I'm never one to really 100% blame the officials because at the end of the day, it was a 1-goal game. You had 60 minutes to score an additional goal, and they didn't do that, right? Sure that maybe you would have liked a couple more power plays, or you would have not wanted that Justin Hall uh, minor or the phantom high stick in Game 6, of course. But at the end of the day, if you also would have just scored one more goal in each of those games, one more goal, wouldn't be having this conversation. And that's on you to score. That's not on the refs. That's on
yeah.
Austin Matthews. That's on John Tavares, William Nylander, Mitch Marner, like Michael Bunting. That's on all those guys to get it done, and they didn't.
Yeah, like that's really what it comes down to, right? Like you can blame the refs all you want. The refs don't score the goals for you,
No,
right? The refs don't make the saves for you. Yeah, you get shot in the foot with a bad high sticking call in game 6. Go kill the penalty off. I understand that you can lose your you can't lose your composure, right? But it's understandable if you get upset about something that goes against you, but don't let it rattle you to the point where like it's just like I think Morgan Riley says we don't really know what the rules are anymore. I think he kind of says something along those lines. There's frustration there. I get it, but let's cool it on the whole refs were the story in the series because they really weren't the entire like the biggest story in the series.
I lied about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm like, there's been no OT goal. You're
There has been
bamboozling.
now, but I got a message from my buddy that said Rust GWG. I thought that meant Rust scored the game-winning goal, but that was him making his
Red man.
prediction ahead of overtime. But no, it's Artemi Panarin who gets it done. A guy who knows a thing or two about winning. He's had some successful long playoff runs. I don't think he ever won a cup with Chicago, though, right? Their cup run kind of stopped
No, he
after he
didn't.
got
But
there.
no.
Yeah,
Let's
because he got
see.
there in 2016. I think their last cup was 2014 or 15, maybe.
Yeah,
But
I
I
think it
mean,
was 2015 when they beat the Lightning, right? If I'm not mistaken. That's where
yeah,
the Lightning lost in their first Cup final.
yeah, yeah. But he was part of the Blue Jackets that beat the Lightning as well when
It
they
was.
swept the Lightning. So he knows a thing or two about winning series, unlike the Toronto Maple Leafs. You know what? I think when it comes to the run it back conversation, we're gonna have to take a couple of days and kind of go over this because there's too many question marks. I think at this point we got to hear from the team. They're having their locker cleanouts tomorrow, Tuesday. We'll hear from Kyle Dubas. We'll hear from Sheldon Keefe and all the players as they do their year end press conferences. And I think that'll give us a little bit of a better understanding of where the team's at, and we can comment with a little bit more information once we know where everyone stands and what the plan is, perhaps. So maybe throughout the week we'll get into that conversation of what's next for this team. I mean, technically, Dave, we have all the way up until next October to have that conversation here on the Locked On Leafs podcast because it's another first round exit, it's a first round elimination. Maple Leafs early birds to get to the golf course once again, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but I guess best of luck to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Best of luck to Adam Danker over at Locked On Lightning. Congratulations. Still, at the end of the day, hard-fought victory. You always knew it was going to be a good series. Yeah, the series lived up to expectation. I think we can
It
agree with
was
that, right?
like Jonas Siegel. I don't have the tweet with me, but Jonas Siegel pretty much said like this was a tight series
Yeah.
right until the end. Like this wasn't a series that one team was like, yeah, the Leafs had some good games, but like it was a pretty equal series.
Both teams had one blowout, and then it was pretty even Steven in the rest of the games. Despite the penalties and whatnot, it was still pretty even, and it turned out to be a great series. But at the end of the day, the Maple Leafs needed one more goal in either Game 6 or Game 7. They weren't able to get it done, and it's the Tampa Bay Lightning moving on, and the Toronto Maple Leafs going home for a fifth
Fifth,
straight.
fifth straight
Sixth
loss.
straight.
Yeah, fifth straight loss in the
Fifth,
playoffs.
fifth straight loss in a game decider. That's it. It was fifth straight loss in a game decider, but sixth straight first round
Yes.
exit dating back to the 6-game series against the Washington Capitals. So yeah, it is what it is, man. I guess we'll take the next week or so, and we will chat a little bit about the future of this club. Hopefully, you guys stick around with us throughout the entire summer. We'll have tons of good content that we'll be doing. We got the draft is coming up. The Maple Leafs actually have a first round pick for the first time in a couple of years, so we could go through some draft content. We'll also follow along the playoffs as a whole, and follow along what goes on with the Maple Leafs, and probably get some pretty cool. Actually, did you see the TikTok the other day about it was Auston Alexander posted a TikTok. It was last night about Maple Leaf fans. The one it was like the Maple Leaf fan in his garage, and then he walks out and he's in a Leafs jersey, walks out and then walks back out into the frame, and he's rocking an Oilers jersey. Did you see this TikTok?
I did not see this TikTok.
Okay, I'm gonna send you the TikTok. I'll send it to you. I bet you there's some people listening. They're like, "Oh yeah, I saw that." Talk to him. He's down to come join us this week. Talk a little bit about his thoughts on how the series went, how the season went, maybe what he wants going moving forward. I know he's a big Leaf fan, and just an overall funny dude as well. Austin Alexander, good dude, good dude. But that's gonna do it for us here today on the pod. I'd like to thank everyone for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcast platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Follow the show at Locked On Leafs. You can also find us on YouTube. Locked On Leafs on YouTube. We're still on our road to 1,000. Even though the Leafs are out, we still are going to be doing our giveaway once we hit 1,000 subs on YouTube. We'll be back with another episode tomorrow, and throughout the week, we'll be looking forward as what to do for the Maple Leafs. What does the future hold for Toronto? Thank you so much. It was a fun season. It was a good season. The hockey is over, but now the off season begins, and I can't wait to talk a little bit about that as well, Dave. So we'll have some fun throughout the next couple of months as we gear up for another year of Maple Leafs hockey next year. But it's not quite over yet. Still tons of hockey to be played, tons of hockey for us to talk about as well. We'll get back into the saddle tomorrow morning with a new episode for you guys. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.